In that case, while Gale is finishing this up, let's go ahead and so everyone's going to sleep, I imagine. Yeah, there isn't a whole lot of watch order happening. Is anybody staying up to keep a watch in addition to the golems?
Like, yeah, I mean, if I don't think because Duergar himself has also said he would be awake through the night.
Yes.
Oh, we haven't showcased this in a bit. Calder, when unconscious, seems like a corpse. His breathing is explicitly undetectable.
Oh no!
He did. Bury him.
Can Lou? Does Lou need to sleep, or can Lou keep watch too?
Lou is probably can just stand there and just bark occasionally. Vic will get up early, like before the end of the rest, and to do spell prep things, and we'll do those further away from the group due to the fact that it requires tools.
I mean, just going on the other
forge. I'm gonna make some shit real quick.
What are you gonna make real quick?
Well, all of my spells, the way that an artificer prepares spells, like a wizard will sit there and memorize a book or whatever. Artificers have to make things because all of their spellcasting materials and stuff are all like our focus is our tool based, so we have to make objects.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go prep spells and make objects.
So it's going to be as you're prepping spells that Duergar will speak in all of your minds at once.
Terrifying and bad.
Awaken, friends. I fear we have visitors.
What?
Over here.
Horrible black tendrils rise out of Calder.
Our DM, are you saying that we don't get our time, like our hours worth?
No,
or we do get that to like choose our new spells.
You do get to choose your new spells.
Okay.
You do it usually as part of the long rest. So it's
essentially,
like 8 hours
essentially this is
last...
essentially this is you get this warning that there's something happening, and it's enough time for you to get up and get prepared for the day. And he says again in your minds, I hear them speaking in the hallway outside, but I only understand a few of the words of my deep brethren. I can say that they are planning an attack on the forge, and I don't believe that they know you're here. But again, I don't understand the deep language.
It's Echo is like rubbing the sleep out of his eye. It's not orcs. It's the Grey Dwarves.
These are the Grey Dwarves.
Oh boy,
they have some kind of construct of their own, but I can't make out what it is.
Well, we're not here to fight a war against the Grey Dwarves. I don't think we need to meet them with violence. We have a common enemy at this point, right? Echo says out into the room. Is Kreitha still? Did Kreitha not wake up at that?
Kreitha is still asleep.
Fuck. Gonna pick Kreitha up and move her to the back of the forge.
I will point to where I know there's a safe back room.
There's a room right here.
Move her there.
That's where I found my crappy sword bit.
If Stinky's still out, ask help in moving Stinky as well.
Speaking of Duergar, would this do anything? We'll pull out the broken sword bit.
Do you have a use for this?
Duergar will sort of dim all of the lights for a moment as he thinks. And he says, yes, actually I do. That piece could mean that I don't have to leave Andoril after all, not at this time.
Oh. So it's a piece of metal with some of the old magic still in it.
It is possible I will be able to, shall we say, secure the forge, and then, with that, return my consciousness to a weapon so that I can continue to help Kreitha. Yes, Maybe. Perhaps. I'm still learning.
We will do what we can.
So Thomas is going to come forward, and he'll say, "These old ears don't quite hear like they used to. Can anyone pick up what they're saying?"
Okay, Calder will nod. He understands a couple words and phrases, but he doesn't speak Undercommon.
Thomas looks to you and says, "Is there no way you can let me hear what you just heard?"
You can try to say it out loud. What you heard, right?
He will use Minor Illusion and recreate the sound.
And Thomas thinks for a moment, and he says, "Well, I have bad news and worse news, and some good news. The bad news is they're definitely here for the golems. The worst news is they brought rust monsters."
What's a rust monster?
It's exactly what I would use if I wanted to kill a pair of iron golems. It's ingenious, really.
But what is it?
A rust monster is a creature that eats rust. It does this by turning metal into rust. I mean, it's a rust monster. What do you think it does?
Any metal? Echo looks down at his adamantine foot knuckles.
No, yes, adamantine should be immune. I don't know of an adamantine monster, but anything that's ferrous, and he looks over at the iron golem, says, would be fair game. The good news is, like Duergar said, they're not making any mention, at least in the moments that you told me, or that you just showed me. They don't seem to be preparing for a fight with us. They seem to only be preparing for a fight with the golems.
So?
If the Duergar do not know we are here, then that's something we can play with.
So once everyone is made aware of the potential that something is happening on the other side of the door, I need active perception checks from everybody. So you know they are not a big fan of bright light. You know that they have the ability to go invisible, and that they have the ability to grow larger. And you know that if they have set their sights on this place as a thing they're going to work on, they have to be very, very strongly told that it's only going to mean their destruction, or else they're going to keep coming for it. Iron golems are not going to stop them.
Echo will frown before walking up and pressing his ears to the door to listen better.
So with a 14 on perception, you hear what sounds like animals shuffling around, probably somewhere between 10 and 20 feet away from the door. There's definitely something like right on the other side. And there's still the faint noise of people talking. And with a 14, there's a fair number of folks over there. Like, you don't have a guess on how many, but there's a fair number of folks over there. They clearly brought force to take this place.
Hey, Duergar, let me open the door.
Very well. I think I can make the golems leave this room. Their original intent was to stay here. I may be able to have them go out with you, but I'm not certain at this time.
No. Leave them here. Let me open the door.
They move to the sides.
Echo opens the door enough for him to walk out of and slips out the door.
The room is crowded. Not crowded, but there's like you open the door, the first thing you see is a gray dwarf with a long wooden pole. And attached to the end of that pole are 4 ropes that lead down to leather collars around 4 what look like beetles with long tails. I also want to note that the Duergar's armor looks like shit. It looks like these things have definitely gotten some nips off on the Duergar's armor.
Echo is not being sneaky. He's not trying to hide. He purposefully walked through the door, like he's even half waving. And then he walks out there and he says in Dwarven, "The golems aren't a problem. There's no need to fight."
Oh man, do we need to go to initiative immediately.
So, here's what happened during the combat. Echo walked through the door, said his piece out to the Duergar, and then we all rolled initiative. The rust monsters got released, and one of the Duergar rushed in and landed a pretty solid hit on Echo. Vic used a bonus action to shift, she's a shifter, and then her action to cast Enlarge on herself, a little using the Duergar's playbook against them as one does. Lou, the good boy that he is, goes and plops himself down behind the not open door to help keep it shut. Calder opens by calling out,
"My name is Calder Creed. If you know that name, you know how this is going to go."
and casts a sickening radiance out into the room, catching most of the rust monsters and a few of the Duergar in the back inside of it. The rust monsters all die on first damage. The Duergar Despot and the totally not a drow in disguise Duergar Mage fail their saves and take some damage. The other Duergar fails and drops to 0. The Duergar outside of the glowy dome of death are like, no thanks, I'm not paid enough for that, and don't do anything. Echo calls out to Calder that,
God damn it, Calder, we don't need to kill them.
and then uses a healing word to pop the downed Duergar in the Radiance back up to a few hit points. Durgadin, the ghost of the Dwarven King Smith who's controlling the forge and the iron golems, has one of the golems rip open the slightly ajar door and take a swing at the attacking Duergar. Echo cries out,
Can we stop killing people real quick?
to which Durgadin responds,
Oh, really? Are you sure? Okay, yes, just let me find the stop killing them button.
Echo pushes the Duergar out of the way of one of the blows. The rust monsters that weren't in the sickening radiance attack the only target they can get to, the Duergar's armor. He manages to dodge their hungry chomps. The Duergar Despot and the Not-a-Drow Mage make their saves and rush out of the sickening radiance, very battered but still alive. The Not-a-Drow retreats further and vanishes into the dark of the chamber further down. Round 2. The fighting Duergar does not read the room and does not realize he's the only Duergar that has rushed into the melee. He tries to hit Echo again and manages to land a blow. Vic, now 12 feet tall, moves forward and grapples the attacking Duergar. She palms his head and lifts him like a basketball. Vic tells him,
Stop.
The Duergar responds with, Vic cuts herself with a great axe, lighting up a blood hunter lightning thing, and then shakes the dude a little more for emphasis. With the Duergar lifted out of the way, the rust monsters rush to get at the iron golem, and they start rusting it away, om nom nom. The Duergar still in the radiance gets knocked back down by the damage at the start of his turn. Calder walks up and calls into the chamber.
This was my opening salvo. If you would like to see what happens when I apply myself, please keep fighting.
And then he starts telekinetically shoving the remaining rust monsters into the sickening radiance. Echo sees that there is still one Duergar in the radiance, and bleeding heart that he is, Echo rushes to save him. Echo fails his save and takes a decent chunk of damage from moving through the glowy death dome. Once on the other side of the dome, it becomes very obvious that the Duergar are no longer fighting. Calder proceeds to throw the rest of the rust monsters into the radiance. Vic keeps a grip on the one guy. She starts telling him to stop in all of the languages she knows. Eventually, he calms the fuck down. Echo casts Spare the Dying on the Duergar he saved, and Calder calls out,
Are we still fighting?
and makes the universal come at me bro gesture. The Duergar Despot makes a non-aggressive gesture back. Calder calls out again,
Do any of you speak a surface language?
and slowly the Despot responds,
I speak dwarf.
I speak Dwarven.
Echo says from behind him, and Calder finally lets the sickening radiance drop. And that's the end of combat.